meeting of the Hubbardston Planning Board. Planning Board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. And just to note for the folks who might be tuning in at home, I recently had some dental surgery on not having a stroke while conducting this meeting. As I mentioned, planning board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. This meeting is being held both in person and virtually through Teams pursuant to Section 20 of the Acts of 21, allowing public meetings to be conducted remotely so that board and committee members as well as members of the public can participate remotely. And we do have one of our members participating remotely, Mr. Dack, which means that votes this evening will be held as roll call votes. And if possible, we ask that Ms. Dack turn her camera on during those votes. So with that said, the first thing on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any members of the public that are here to comment in person or online for any matters that are not on the agenda? All right, hearing none and seeing none online, we're gonna move forward into the acceptance of the minutes. The minutes have been made available to members of the planning board, both through the drive and through their board packets. Please take a moment to look at the minutes, and then once you have, we'll address corrections during the discussion. Would somebody like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I would like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of February the 20th, 2025 as presented.
Hearing first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Hearing a first and a second, any discussion or corrections? I'm really looking forward to having my voice back. Hearing no corrections, calling a roll call vote. Ms. Dack?
Dack, aye.
Mr. Steiger?
Steiger, aye.
And the chair is aye, the minutes are accepted. Moving forward on the agenda, we have the planner's report, but we're gonna be addressing pretty much all of those items under new business. So we're gonna forward into the agenda. So, going into new business, wait. Yep, that's still true, but going into new business, we have 3 items. We have discussion of the e-codification. We're gonna authorize submission of some draft warrant articles hopefully, and we're gonna schedule some public hearings for some zoning bylaws for the same. So with that said, turning over to Alec.
The e-codification is actually me.
Oh, okay.
We're working on
Yeah.
e-codification of all of our bylaws. This particular portion requires approval by the planning board, so I included in all your packets. The zoning bylaw and subdivision regulations will have a chapter and section numbers consistent with the organization found throughout the rest of the code chapters. As a result, you will note the following differences from the current organization. It is for your review, and you are just signing off on whether the layout and numbering looks appropriate.
Anybody on the board have any questions?
Not a question in terms of the structure. My question more is in terms of have you assessed the impact that this has from like how long this is gonna take for you to implement this?
Yeah, it's going to take a couple of years. We're working with a code company, General Code, who is reviewing our bylaws, making suggestions and putting it together, and they have a timeline of out until 2027, I believe, to complete the whole project.
Wow. And may I ask, what's is there a cost associated with this?
Yes, it's already been approved.
And paid by?
Yes. It
Okay.
was approved by the select board and at town meeting, special town meeting in
Yeah.
November.
So
And-
that's all, and based on this so this templating, structure comes from them?
Correct, from
Okay,
General
gotcha.
Code, the
Okay.
company who's doing all of the work for us.
Very good. No more questions then?
Okay, any other questions on it? And do we need a motion and a vote on this?
We do.
Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion that the number of organizational changes noted above as described by the board's clerk are acceptable to the board?
So moved by Councilor Steiger.
Yep. Hearing first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Calling, any discussion? Calling a roll call vote? Ms. Stack,
Jack, aye.
Mr. Steiger,
Steiger, aye?
and the chair is aye. The noted changes are accepted. So, moving down the list, we have authorized submission of draft warrant articles, so this is where we turn it over to Alec.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you everybody for giving me the chance to speak on this tonight. So, we are coming before you tonight to ask for authorization to submit 4 warrant articles. Each of them is a zoning bylaw article, and each one in
Can you increase the volume a bit, please?
I'm going to get my screen share set up real quick.
Thank you.
Switch between my meeting modes. I'm used to doing this on a different style. Bear with me. All right, I can't see my screen, but can you see mine?
Can you zoom in a little?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. That's good.
A little more for the older ones.
Sorry.
Thank you, I was gonna say, can you zoom in a lot?
How about a little more from there?
Sorry, guys.
How's this look?
I mean, another 1 or 2 for the people who aren't 25. There you go.
I mean, I can make this.
I mean, we got full
easier,
screen, we
actually.
got a big TV there, we might as well use it.
Share. How does it look now?
Like an eye exam, but I think we can get there.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll do more talking than actually showing. So, what we've done to date is assembled 3 separate articles, and we are in process of assembling a 4th article. Each article follows your standard format. The first one we're gonna touch upon is revisions to Article 24, accessory dwelling unit. I'll note that earlier this evening, I uploaded into your packet a written memo for 3 out of the 4 recommendations here. I've provided you with Word document versions of 2 of the articles so that you can begin your own markups independently, as well as some supporting materials. And when we get to the site plan review section, we'll go over the various attachments. What I've done since your last meeting is taken the proposed accessory dwelling unit bylaw that Francois and I had exchanged comments and ultimately pared down. I've put that into your standard format, so you'll see Article 24 is titled Accessory Dwelling Unit, ADU. There are 2 sections of the bylaw, first being the definition section, and the second being citing and regulations. The recommendation I have for you on this article is to strike Article 24 as it stands today in its entirety and adopt the new model bylaw that was developed in the format it is presented to you tonight. I'll note as well that Francois and I have communicated separately, and he's given me the exercise to effectively run loopholes through this bylaw, try and conceptualize some scenarios by which someone could avoid or circumvent the regulations, just come at it with different proposals. And that's something we do discreetly in the background, but always good to try and run some test models through it, effectively come at it as if I was an applicant trying to skirt the rules in some way, shape, or form. I don't like doing that because I tend to work on your side of the aisle of these things, but nonetheless, it's something we do to make sure these bylaws work effectively. we'll continue to do that in the background, but I encourage you all to peruse the attached Word document in your packet from this meeting. And if you would like, you're welcome to download, mark up, and send me directly any comments or feedback. As a note and a reminder, you cannot mark up this version digitally. You can't do so in the packet itself. You have to send those to me individually, otherwise it might run afoul of open meeting law. Are there any questions on the ADU bylaw?
See, not at this time. I'll have to review what you have put up. I think that only main concern I had, as I think I expressed last time around, was the issue of potentially utilizing multiple special permits by which you can start creating a small community of accessory dwelling units within a lot. So we just need to be
Yep.
cognizant of how to go about doing that. And I think during this, I think it was last week, if I remember correctly, there was a meeting with the MRPC, something like that we were talking about ADUs. Or there was a meeting about
Yeah.
ADUs, and I presented that, and again, I think they indicated that you use basically a special permit as a means by which you can create multiple ADUs, but there was theoretically no limit in terms of the number of ADUs that you can put within a lot as a result of this here. So I think we need to be very cognizant of that, and I think it comes up to the discretion of each town to potentially cap it. Say for example, to not more than one special permit is allowed beyond the initial ADU that you're obviously allowed to put in. So in essence, you could potentially have up to 2 ADUs within a property as a max, if that were the way that we wanted to go. But I'm just saying is that I think we ought to consider that as something that is certainly important for us to review.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly, and running the scenario through that you would give me, that one in particular. Your current bylaw exists with a hard cap of only the one accessory dwelling unit on a lot. And further, what I've gone in and done is I've further defined where a detached accessory dwelling unit can be located. So the ADU may be attached or detached on the same lot as the principal dwelling unit or on an adjacent lot under common ownership. And so effectively by saying that, we're stating that an accessory dwelling unit can't be proposed by an applicant who doesn't otherwise own the lot, or you must have the ownership sign off on the lot.
Correct.
And further, that you can only do the first accessory dwelling unit. I'll be interested during your public hearing process as to whether we get public input that says, you know, whether the public's interested in seeing that second, third, however many ADUs by special permit. But I would agree with what you've heard through the MRPC process, that so long as you state the cap in the bylaw itself, you lock in that level that you can do. Your current cap is only one accessory dwelling unit, and that would be the by right unit.
I would suggest that a lot of this discussion is mooted by the fact that we have cabins, campgrounds, and I believe alternative lodging already allowed in Article 4 as a special permit enabled use in all districts. So it kind of stops being an ADU once you get past that second unit anyways. It moves into the cabins, campgrounds, and other forms of alternative lodging. So it's already permissible elsewhere in the bylaws, so I don't know that what we do has a lot of effect here, because if someone just goes to not making a second ADU, I'm making cabins, and that I can do by special permit. So, I don't know, it's certainly something to look at.
Yep. Okay. Being cognizant of time, I'm gonna move forward to the next proposed bylaw. That is revisions to Article 23, or the battery energy storage systems. And so the board will remember that this is a revitalization of an article that was put forward at annual town meeting 2024. In the fall of 2024, I met with Tim Hawley, a resident of town. He and I had talked through the events at town meeting floor, and I used him as a bit of a test case to understand, in his words and his mind, why the article ultimately failed. Through my discussions with him, we came across, a couple different reasons. There were some slight Scrivener's errors in the bylaw itself. It appears that drafts had gotten commingled and not the final draft had landed on town meeting floor. I have gone in, and as you can see, just from the table of contents here alone, I've worked through to ensure that it's cleaned up, those items are succinctly put forward, and then noting where other sections have been consolidated into the bylaw. And I put forward this Word version here for you and the board's review at this time. I'm not recommending coming forward with an entirely different bylaw. I'm recommending coming forward with your substantially the same bylaw. The key finding that Tim and I had talked through is that it was more of an education and understanding piece. The public didn't fully understand the bylaw itself, and that's not uncommon. Bylaws are incredibly technical. They're hard to comprehend and hard to read. I sit at a desk and have for 5 years now trying to understand bylaws, and just about every other day a new bylaw comes across my desk that I have to scratch my head and understand how to interpret it. What I'd recommend pairing with your current battery energy storage proposal is a marketing campaign, that with visual tools and pieces to understand, effectively scaling it up and down. So what does a specific battery type and what does a kilowatt rate look like? So the conversations I had was that even something as small as a computer battery raised questions from people as to, is that something that applies to this bylaw? Versus all of us in the room now understand we're talking about something that effectively fits in a trailer and has to be flooded with water to put out a fire. Something much more drastic and much more intense. I think with those pieces paired together, you'll have a successful time passing this bylaw. The sentiment that Tim shared with me at the time is that the bylaw itself was not unpassable. Sorry. Are there any questions? I'm hearing.
Sorry, the door to the other room was open. Keep
Sorry
going.
about that, but ultimately, what he and I discussed is that the bylaw itself was not averse. It wasn't something that people were necessarily opposed to as a bylaw itself, but that the lack of understanding and the Scrivener's errors created enough caution and concern. One area of particular concern was overlap or contradiction with NFPA standards. Most recently, Tim has communicated to me and sent actually a pretty good informational handout, which I've included in your virtual packet, that breaks down information on the different types of battery energy storage and the way NFPA regulates those. And so that'll be an important piece and give you a sense of what a one-pager paired with the article on town meeting floor could look like. Any questions on the battery energy storage systems?
I guess from my perspective, I'd like to review it before I make many comments, but one overall question I have here, and more based on the comments that you have made in terms of the color of this here, are we really focusing here on utility scale battery energy storage system, or are you creating, is this being created as a much more overarching bylaw for battery energy storage systems that are beyond the utility scale ones?
Yeah, so I would look to you as the board to give guidance on how to answer that question. My objective is to pass your bylaw from last year. And so I'll look to you
Right.
to drive home what the frames and the specific key points are that we're gonna make in our argument.
Since you're talking with Tim, I'll definitely take a look at this here, but always the intention here was to make this a bylaw that impacted really a battery energy storage system at a utility scale. When I mean utility, we're talking about the public utilities that service the towns, this town and other towns in the community that would utilize it purposely to store energy for the distribution through their network. I'm not talking about the Tesla battery energy storage systems that typically individuals have at their homes, not only to store energy, but then to utilize it, say for example, for off hours or for emergency hours, situations, I should say.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that,
Just keep that in mind, as you're having that discussion, because that's truly what we're trying to tackle here, and not get into a convolution of that, and on top of that, what we're not trying to regulate is individuals owning battery energy storage system on their own homes and properties.
Yeah, and that's good to hear reiterated, that the conversations we've had to date is that this is not something that regulates homeowners and their specific appurtenances and various batteries throughout the house, regardless of scale. This isn't regulating a much larger use code that's more akin to something on a commercial scale or size, that utility use that you're talking about, where oftentimes it's just draw power down from the grid and sell it back at a later date in time.
Correct. Okay.
Alright, so Alec, is this bylaw also, does it also have, Attorney General pre-review available? Cause this has also been a lightning rod area. The previous version that we had put forward, despite its flaws, was structured in a way specifically to clear the Attorney General's office. So, I just wanna make sure we don't lose that again. I also wanted to point out for the benefit of the board and the public that, this is, essentially, what we're doing here is we're essentially just approving the draft concepts. We're gonna meet about this a bunch more times and work out the details and hold the public hearing. It's just, we need to, put forward the concepts so that we don't end up in the situation last year where we're trying to finalize 2 weeks before the meeting, and, yeah, that was hard.
Well, that, not only that, but, and again, I think it's very important to ensure that the public who has a vested interest in this here in one way or the other participate in this public meeting, so it does not become a issue during the town meetings, which is really lamentably what happened last year. Plenty of opportunities existed to have this reviewed by the public at large, and lamentably, it was a lack of participation that I think caused some of this problems.
Yeah. And that's where a marketing campaign can be really successful. Ahead of your public hearing, we'll put together the first social media graphics. From my discussions with Nate, that does tend to be a way to get in touch with some of, if not many of your town meeting voters. And so the intent would be to put something that catches the eye forward on social media through the town's portfolios. Nate, you would raise the question is this something that could be eligible for pre-review by the Attorney General's office? I have not heard them say as of late that they're reviewing this style or type of bylaw, but that doesn't mean we can't ask the questions. One of my further recommendations, though, is that we do submit this bylaw for review, not necessarily a substantive review, but at least a public comment review from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency and or an NFPA reviewer, so that we can put to bed the questions and concerns that people had as to whether this would in any way contradict or interfere with other state standards.
Our MEMA representative is stellar. I can reach out to him at any time, so just let me know what you want him to answer and we'll get it.
Yeah,
Where we can pull in an outside agency to even issue a letter of support, it only strengthens our case going into town meeting.
yeah, certainly, and it's true of both of the bylaws, where we're threading a pretty tight, straight level regulatory needle on them. So we can tweak some of the things, but there's a whole lot of provisions in both of them that are gonna be pretty rigorously enforced by the Attorney General's office. So we're gonna be able to do some customization, but not a lot of rewriting. And credit to us on the ADU bylaw, because the version that we passed a couple of years ago, which is the one we're tuning up now, is actually really close to what the state model came out with. So we did a pretty good job anticipating where it was gonna go. So with that, Alec, what you're looking for is you're looking for us to vote to approve the drafts to move forward in the process or what do you need from us?
Yeah, so I have two motions tonight. I'll note there are 2 other articles that are still in development, that specifically being revisions to Article 9. In your virtual packet, you'll find a marked up copy of Article 9, that being your site plan approval standards. You'll also find draft standards that are put forward for rules and regulations prepared by Mark Bobrowski. It's his model site plan rules and regulations, and in tune or in concert with the submission date for proposed warrant articles. You'll also produce your draft rules and regulations. The marked up copy of Article 9 that you'll find in your packet, I've highlighted various sections that would be considered administrative in nature. Those things that can be condensed down into a rules and regulations document. And those will be effective for you to understand how much of this bylaw we can actually pare down and better understand. So again, you'll find that in your virtual packet, and I look forward to talking through that one further. And then additionally, Leanne has been working hard on revisions to your floodplain bylaw, so that it would comply with the National Flood Insurance Provider Standards in the 2020 model bylaw. And so my recommendation would be to bring forward revisions to Articles 9, 13, 23, and 24. And I do have a draft motion when you're ready for it.
I'm just looking now, I didn't see those materials before the meeting.
I have not.
I haven't seen it either, so. I think you should.
No, I've only uploaded those earlier this evening because I knew I'd be sharing my screen and talking through them, so I wanted to make sure they'd be available to you and the public should you want to look back on them.
Okay, is there any way we can put off those ones, because I don't think anybody's had a chance to look at those without blowing the timeline?
Absolutely. Get this pulled up.
I mean, what's the board's thoughts here, because the ADU is essentially just an update of the existing one, and where we're gonna have lots of opportunities to tune it up, so it's just moving forward in the process. Same thing with the best one, it's a previously approved version that's tuned up. The other one,
The
I don't
ADU is
know
a
what the board's-
significant reduction in terms of the wording,
yeah,
so,
which we don't have a lot of choice about because
Yep.
of the state.
right.
But the third one, I think we really need an opportunity to take a look at before we vote.
I would agree to that, yes.
Agreed.
Third and the fourth.
Okay, so yeah, I think we can, I think we'll have the votes for the first two, but that, the latter parts, we need to put forward at another meeting, so that we have a chance to take a look at them.
Okay, absolutely. Leanne, I will ask the question, do you have the same effective date for the, for your flood maps as I do in my region? I think that's July 8th,
Yes,
2025?
yes.
Okay, so we're just gonna wanna make sure, so we can do, we can certainly prepare drafts of that. From what I've seen, Leanne has already got the draft substantially ready as it is, and kudos to her for working through that and working through it with the agency. But it will be important that that be brought forward to this annual town meeting.
Okay, so what's the proposed motion for the first two?
Okay, so your proposed motion for the first two, you'll seek a motion to submit revision to Articles 23 and 24, and further authorize the planner to prepare and submit warrants on your behalf.
Alright, would somebody like to make that motion?
So moved.
Hearing a first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Hearing a second, calling for discussion. Alright, hearing no discussion, roll call vote, Ms. Stack,
Jack, aye.
Mr. Steiger,
Steiger, aye?
and the chair is aye, the motion carries. And then we're holding on the next two there. As far as scheduling, what are we looking at for that, and are we, well, what do you need?
Yeah, so, based on your noticing schedule, my recommendation is that you hold the public hearing on April 17th. So at your next meeting, you'll be able to, we can talk through some changes you might like to see, some questions you have that you'll want answered at the public hearing. And from there, I'll structure the presentation back out. So this time, you'll seek a motion to schedule a public hearing on the proposed revisions to Article 23 and 24 to be held on April 17th, 2025.
Yeah, I was about to say that. And how how does that work for everybody who's here at least, because that's obviously gonna be an important meeting if we're sticking. And I guess if we talk about this, well, the other two items we'll have to do at a meeting following that. Okay.
That's correct. So what you would do is you'd do in your first meeting of May, you would hold hearings on Article 9 and 13, assuming that you choose to move forward with the draft warrant language we present to you at that time.
Okay, why don't we schedule both of those? Cause that will also keep us moving towards the vote, and we'll have the line set so that we know we'll have this done by then. That work?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, we'll schedule for both of those meetings.
Okay.
All right, anything else on that?
That is all I have for you on draft warrant articles.
So, moving on to old business, we have, we're gonna resume a public hearing. Now, we actually have to enter it back into the public hearing for this, right? Or do we just handle this administratively? Alec?
I believe it's withdrawal without prejudice, so you don't need to open the public hearing. You can accept the withdrawal without prejudice and motion to close the public hearing.
So we had on our agenda tonight a item to continue the public hearing for, that was originally began on Thursday, February 5th, to review the application for a special permit and site plan review for Bowie Berthold, Paper Crane Provisions LLC with regards to a proposed expansion of the commercial marijuana facility located at 56 Gardner Road. The applicant's engineer has submitted a letter to the planning board asking to withdraw the application without prejudice because Paper Crane has not been able to create a host community agreement with the town. So with that said, the request is on the table. I don't see a lot of reasons to not accept the request to withdraw the application, but I did want to open it up to the board, and we would have to have a motion, and vote, to accept this. But, also noting it's a special permit, item, so all members are in play for the vote and discussion.
Yep.
So does anybody have anything they wanna talk about accepting the withdrawal?
The negotiation that's mentioned in the letter from the engineer, was that between the applicant and the select board?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and that hangs as, that certainly hangs as a cloud over anything that we would do.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to move forward with this if they don't know if they're gonna get their host, if they're gonna extend their host agreement, so. Moving forward with us costs quite a bit of money because of all the engineering hours and stuff. So. All right, would somebody like to make a motion to accept the request to withdraw without prejudice?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, any additional discussion? All right, calling a roll call vote, Ms. Dack,
Jack, aye.
Mr. Steiger,
Are you right?
Mr. Russell,
Russell, aye.
and the chair is aye. The applicant has withdrawn the application without prejudice. All right, so we have an item hanging over for the draft ADU bylaw. Will we still plan on moving forward with that tonight, or we already?
So you accomplished the exercise that
Okay.
you needed to do for that. That was just scheduling the public hearing and placing the draft on warrant.
Okay. All right, so moving forward into administrative matters, does anybody have any administrative items that weren't on the agenda? How many more meetings do we have in this room left? Do you guys know?
No, we don't know.
Well, I guess just at some point in the near future, we will be moving rooms. Also also, it's election season, and it's my seat that's currently up. Need to remember to pull papers. I don't think there's anything else on the table for administrative matters. So on to 8, which is matters not reasonably anticipated by chair. I guess as far as that goes, there's been some discussion at the select board about auctioning some parcels. The select board has made the decision that they're gonna hold for a moment, and they're gonna come and they're gonna ask us in the open space committee for some feedback on it, and also work with some of the other stakeholders in the town to make sure that what they're rolling forward with makes sense with what some of the longer term development plans have been.
If I may ask the chair, what is it exactly that they're asking? I mean, I know that you kind of described it, but I mean, other than what we have done in the past, which was provide some money so that the town could reacquire parcels of land that have been tax delinquent, I'm just trying to understand, how does this impact our planning board?
So some of the issues, some of the lots are on Pitcherville Road and are key lots potentially for water connectivity for the town.
Gotcha.
So Mr. Murray has a report that he did previously for us. And there's also some of the development documents related to Streeter Road, and those weren't in the process going to the select board. So the select board's kind of taken the moment to step back and be like, hey, we should look at the research other people have done, and also incorporate that into our decision-making process here.
Have they given a timeline by when they will reach back out to us?
Not yet. Nate's putting together an actual written process for it. That way it won't just be, there'll be an actual written process with a guideline on here. This person has to look at this by this date, this person has to look at this by this date. That way it all can happen transparently for the public.
Is there anything that needs to be done from a timeline perspective? I don't know if they're asking us to do any work prior to a town meeting where some major decisions may have to take place with the town folks voting on such matters. That's why I'm asking the question.
I mean, as of the current moment, I don't think that's likely.
Okay.
I don't think it's impossible, but really the person that I think everyone's most interested to hear from is Alec and Bill Murray on this.
Okay.
On Bill's previous work and what Alec's thoughts are with what's currently going on with the sand pit zoning grant and some of the other projects that are going on there. It really needs just the eye of a professional to go in and combine some of that and think of all the stuff that we might be missing.
Okay. I just bring this up because of the timelines and again, it's just, everything is getting squeezed to
Yeah.
the April timeframe, and I know that the warrants close, I think it's the end of April?
April 1st.
April 1st. Oh, April 1st.
Alec, if it closes April 1st, do we need to move those other 2 items tonight?
So I would look to, is Nate in the room with you by chance?
No.
He's left.
Okay. So it really comes down to your town administrator's level of acceptance. For example, the community I work with in Boxborough, we can submit one-line warrant articles that just says language to be determined at so-and-so meeting date. It really comes down to the level of justification. Additionally, individuals have the authority to submit articles, and so if Nate tells me that he needs something more concrete or more complex, I can just do so in my capacity as your part-time planner, and then it won't get the planning board's tag until after the meeting you vote to put it forward.
I mean, so that's workable, cause the subdivision updates has been something that's been on our to-do list for, I don't know, 5 years. So we have an opportunity to close that out with a professional working on it. We should take full advantage of that. So as long as you think there's a path forward, I think we're good. Okay.
I do believe so, yes.
Excellent, so we'll leave that a problem for future us. Other than that, I believe that's all the matters that weren't reasonably anticipated. Does anybody else have any comments or questions on anything else not on the agenda, either members of the board or members of the public? All right, hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Hearing a first, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, and it's non-debatable, calling a vote, Ms. Dack,
Back aye.
Mr. Steiger.
Schneider, aye?
And the chair is aye. We were adjourned at 7:10 PM.